Alright, so The Last of Us Episode 2 Infected. These are my thoughts from just watching the episode. I literally finished watching it about 10 minutes ago. These are raw, unfiltered, unprocessed thoughts that are going to just come out of my brain as I unpack what I've just watched. So I will do the spoiler-free part of my thoughts at the beginning, and then I will throw out the spoiler hand later on so we can talk about spoiler-filled stuff, because there are some things that I really want to get into. So let's start with what I thought about the episode overall. I really liked this episode, like, way more than the first one. I liked the time. I was not bored once in it. I mean, that sounds harsh, but I did get bored in the first one. But I felt like the first episode, that second half, was very tutorial, which it is in the game, and it's my least favourite part of the game, whereas this one, we're getting into the world, and so seeing, like, I wanted to start off with the fact that I was super impressed with this episode on multiple levels. Firstly, the set design, even though I mentioned it before, is phenomenal. It is on point. These areas look like out of the game. Like, it's so interesting. It's like such an interesting thing to watch and to be like, oh, I know this part, and to like see parts from the game that you recognize play out in the exact, like, it's like it's spot on. It's not even like, oh, this is a little off. Like, the areas like the hotel, which made an early appearance. Normally it comes a bit later on in the game, but I'm not mad about that. Like, I thought that was interesting. I really like the hotel scene. Maybe they couldn't put it elsewhere in the game because I guess that is quite a long section of the game, the Pittsburgh stuff. So I'd rather have it in now, and that's the part that they go through, and like having Ellie do all her little shtick that she does. And then even the museum and the Capitol building, and when they cross the bridge, like, again, like, there were moments that were like literally the cut scenes, like the bit where Ellie and Joel are on, you know, looking over like, oh, we can't deny that view. Beat for beat, like almost the lines, the blocking of it, like all that stuff, and the costumes and the acting, it's all spot on. And I really loved as well seeing the world and how it looks now after everything has been infected. Like, that's obviously like a cool moment in the game anyway, when you're exploring and like seeing what the world has become when nature has reclaimed it. So it's cool to see that in real like life and not just like, you know, video game kind of stuff. So I thought the episode was really good. I liked the way that it was kind of remixed. That's what I see that this as now. Like, I was thinking about, you know how you talk about games that are remastered, remade, or remixed? I see this as more of like a remix of the original source material. Like, obviously, we're following the same narrative, but certain things get mixed and matched here and there, and because it's TV, things have to be slightly different in order for a TV audience. So I thought it was funny. There was like moments where, like, you know, they're trying to like traverse places, and of course Tess has to be the one to go and do it. When normally it would be you, Joel, because you're the player playing the game. But that's a moment where Tess can leave and Joel and Ellie can talk to each other. So I thought stuff like that was pretty funny. Just knowing how in the context of a game works. There's not much opening drawers in this game. You're not open in the TV show even. You're not opening drawers and finding nothing in them. They need to do a bit more scavenging, and Joel isn't popping his pills and getting into his backpack. But I suppose that wouldn't make for very interesting watching. So obviously those are like mild deviations that have to be made for television. So yeah, overall I liked this part of the story. It's also my favourite part. I did forget that it has one of my favourite, I know I mentioned last week, the things I was most excited to see, and I'd forgotten as it was coming up. I was like, oh, one of my favourite cutscenes. It's the Joel and Tess in the Capitol building. I love that scene so much. I'm going to get more into that in the spoiler half, because I love that cutscene so much. It's such a good, and it's slightly different in this, and I understand for reasons why. So yeah, overall I thought the tension building was good, the world building was good. There are a few things I'm still not sold on, mostly the infected. I still think that there's something quite not right, or I don't know how they've changed certain aspects of the lore of the infected that I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. However, I will say when the clickers show up, the clickers are on point. So whilst I'm not too keen on the actual what's happening with the infected overall, especially in those first initial stages, when the clickers showed up, I was like, this is bang on. Like, the acting of the clickers, the movements, the sound, even the tension of like trying to hide from them and stuff, that was all like, yes, this is what I want. I loved that bit in the museum. That was really good. All that stuff I am very much into, and I'm excited to see how other scenes will play out based on this. Like, this feels very close to the original source material in most instances. So I think that's everything that I want to cover non-spoiler. I don't know if there's anything else that... Music can still be better. I don't know. I just think that original music is so iconic, and I don't know why they felt the need to not use it. Maybe because it would be too similar or something. I don't know. There's like... I like when it bleeds through the original music, but it's still a little like... What they're using instead is just lacking a bit. So I think that's my main non-spoiler. So let's throw up the spoiler hand. So I'm now going to go into spoiler territories for the rest of the episode because there's things that I want to dig deep down into. Not as deep as I'm going to bite somebody if I was infected, but still deep. Let's go. Spoiler hand up. It is now your chance to depart. So where do I begin with the spoilers? Let's talk about the infected first and foremost, seeing as I'm on that train of thought. So there are things that have changed about the infected, which I'm kind of like, okay, like I can see maybe they're doing it for narrative purposes to make it a little bit more interesting, to build up the tension. So one of the things is like the fungus grows underground and it can sense when, like, if you touch it, very much like Vecna's house in Stranger Things 4, like, especially when they walked in that building, there's all like everything there. I was like, I've got Stranger Things 4 vibes. But yeah, I don't like the idea that the fungus is sentient in that way. I mean, maybe it is because that's how, I don't know, viruses, I suppose, well, it's not even a virus, like fungi is different from a virus. It's like it's alive. But yeah, I thought that was weird that they've got like long things that just, and if you touch it, then they know and they can, send the forces of the other infected to go find you. Like, that felt a little like hokey somehow. Like, really? Oh, okay, we're doing this, fine. Like, okay, I'll get into that, I guess. And also the other thing about the sets that wasn't in the original game is like there's a lot more fungi that have been like, on buildings and stuff, which before it was only like when the infected were around that you would see like areas of it. So there's that. There's also a lot of lying down by the infected. I don't know what they're all doing on the floor, like a bunch of maggots going like, blah, blah. But I was like, I don't know. That was weird to me. I was like, they're meant to just be like mindlessly wandering about. Like maybe they didn't. I think the visual of them all on the floor and they look out over the balcony area and they're like, oh God, we can't go that way. What are they even doing? Are they all supposed to be like eating something or just lounging about? Like, what's happening? Like, I think I guess if they were standing up, it would look very zombified. But they don't normally, like, they're just sort of going, like when they're just, I don't know, I don't like that change. I think that's what makes them scary because there's still that humanity side to it, like that they're just standing there like convulsing, waiting for something to activate them, or crying because they're in physical pain, knowing what's happening, like knowing they're going to turn, like, but then they can't control their emotions type thing. Like, I don't know, I don't like the switch from just being in like human to infected. Like it takes a couple of, they're making it sound like it takes quicker. Maybe that's how they've changed it. Like it takes quicker to get infected fully in the TV show than it is the game. But, I feel like, in the game they say that it takes like 3 days to turn properly or something. So that's why there's a bit of time where you're still like, shit, this is happening to me. What are we going to do about it? Do we live it out or do we do something about it? So yeah, that, not sure about. But as I said, the clickers, perfect from the everything. That's my clicker impression, and the way I love that bit as well when they were all in stealth. Did a little bit of crouching when I thought was good, and then when they stepped on something, it just went like that. I was like, yes, because that's what happens in the game, and that whole like the choreographing of the clickers, very good. Now, I guess still thinking about the infected, I guess I will jump to... Actually, let's pin the end, because the end I do want to delve deeper into. I want to talk about the beginning, which I thought was very interesting. So at the beginning, there's like a flashback to 2003. I can't remember what country it was, but they're in another country, and it's kind of a couple of days, 2 days, I believe, before the outbreak fully happens, outbreak day, as they say. This I found very intriguing, and I was super into it, and I hope there's going to be more of it. Like, it feels weird to just sprinkle a little bit of like what happened the days before one time and not go back to it. So I hope that there might be more of that, because it is something that the world, like the game never really explores, is like, because we just like thrown into the world, like this is the day it happens, your job, get going, and we're into it. Whereas I do find that a way that's an interesting thing that the TV show can do, is they can tell that story in like a flashback of like what happened, like when people started to figure out you can do this, like this would happen, and what actions do people take. Like I'd like, as someone who knows the world of The Last of Us, I would like more of that to be explored, because that for me was like, oh, this is new stuff that intrigues me, and I would like to know, like, I guess it's stuff that, the writers of the game probably talked about, but obviously never made it into the game, because it's just more like world building stuff that they needed to do to, set the scene. So yeah, I'm very intrigued. I'd like to see more of that. Like, I found that very tense, very scary, especially again since we've just like come out of like a pandemic, obviously not like to that extent of, because that woman is very much like, it's the end. And obviously, I feel like I don't know what else you would do at that point. If there is nothing and people cannot be cured, that would be pretty devastating and horrifying. So yeah, I liked that. What else? Is there anything else? Like I did like the moments between Joel and Ellie when they had their, they had a few heart to hearts, I guess, and some deep conversations. The show is very slow paced, but I like that a lot. I'm wondering what new viewers who have no idea about the TV show will think about the slow nature of it. Maybe they'll be more like, for them, tense. I don't really feel very tense during the episode until the action moments were happening because I kind of already knew what was going to happen. But maybe that's something that other viewers unfamiliar would get that. And I loved the foreshadowing of like, oh yeah, so what? Is it real that these other infected exist and there's ones that do this? We as people who play the game know that. And I like the fact that Joel knows it's true, but he's going to keep it to himself. Like, Joel's seen some shit, but he doesn't want to obviously scare you, so I like that. I guess then the last point I would like to talk about, I suppose, is the ending, really. So instead this time instead of going through the big office building, which I thought was an interesting choice, not to do that. I suppose that is, again, very tutorial-y. It's like, in the game, it's just teaching you, like, how to deal with the infected, and, but I do like that visual of that building that's kind of broken, but that's obviously not happening. So instead they go through the hotel. I really like how Ellie does that, can I take your bag, sir? Like, having that little, like, press triangle moment. And I like that Tess was there for that stuff. And, then they go to the museum bit, which is also very well done. That was my favourite scene. I think the museum stuff was, like, point. Then knowing that, obviously, Tess being bitten, slight change deviation to the original is that Ellie gets bit too, which I thought was good because for what happens later, so you can compare Tess's bite to Ellie's bite. And also we know from Spoilers for Last of Us Part 2 that Ellie being bit again, I mean, for the audience, I suppose it could change for the TV show, but I guess from what we watched, or what we played in Part 2, that Ellie being bit again doesn't affect her, which I thought was a very interesting point in Part 2, not to go too much into that, but I was wondering if that would affect her or something. Like, maybe there's something there, but I guess in the terms of this, it was like, Ellie gets bit again, Tess gets bit, and then we get to that final scene. Of course, like, oops, right? And then you can see Tess's is bad. And in the game, it's like, this is 3 weeks old. This is already worse. But I think for the TV audience, you need to see that this happened the same time. And you can see, like, for sure that her one is way worse than Ellie's one. So I thought that was good. Now, the scene itself, I was super excited for when it came up to it. And I don't know, it was very different, very weird, still very tense. I think I still give it to the game, as I love the actor that plays Tess in the game. I do love the person who played Tess as well in this too, but Tess is one of my favourite characters from the game. And I love that kind of emotion that her and Joel have in that last bit. Like, there's got to be something here for you to believe this. Like, she really, like, persuades Joel to take Ellie based on, like, whatever it is that's not really told between us that they have between them. I didn't feel quite that connection this time because I think it's a bit more frantic, what's happening. And then, of course, it's this new, like... Also, I think it's very interesting that there's no... and I wonder if this is going to be throughout the game. They just seem to... The game, I keep calling it the game. The TV show. They've got rid of the soldiers, the Federal Guards, as, like, an enemy. I'm sure that they just don't want to confuse things, and maybe the hunters will come back later. Like, I'm interested to see how they do the human enemies. I suppose that would be next, well, maybe not next because we've got to go through Billstown. So humans won't come back until Pittsburgh. So maybe they just want to build up the infected. It's very much an infected heavy. So they swapped it so that instead of the Federal Guards coming in, it's the infected that are now coming in. So like Tess is going to hold the fort, and then so within the game, obviously she's just going to see how many she can take out to buy them some time. But here, there's like hordes of them coming because they shoot one that's on the floor, and then the tendrils, like, I don't know, go, it's time. And they tell every single infected, because now they have a hive mind, that they're all in here. And of course, so they all come running, like loads of them come running. And so Tessa's going to do, obviously, the self-sacrifice slightly differently. She's going to blow the building. So, yeah, Joel, Ellie, they kind of leave. I felt unsatisfied by the Tess-Joel relationship, how it's just so good in the game. And they do still have, like, some of those lines that still happen, like, I like had to write out sometime, or no, I just love that we are survivors. No, this is like, oh, there's so many good lines in that bit that didn't quite make it to the, I don't know, maybe they just wanted to remix it and do it slightly differently. I can let it go. Yeah, so then they run off, and yeah, Tess is like, putting loads of gasoline everywhere, and she's trying to light a lighter, which is apparently Sam's lighter. A little Easter egg there from Uncharted 4. Screw you, Sam. just a little casual Sam hate for you there. Yeah, so she's trying to like, to blow the thing up. Now, this was the weirdest part of the entire thing, which I was like, this is like some next level fucked up. So all these infected come running in. I'm curious to see how they do the stalkers. Will the stalkers even make it? Because this one guy looked very stalkerish, half infected on one side, turns to Tess, and like, I don't know, they shared like this moment, And I'm not sold on these tendrils that come out of the mouth. I think it's kind of like, I don't know, in the beginning bit when that woman's inspecting the dead body, the tendrils are scary because they're alive. So at one point, like, part of me likes them because they do have this scary element of tension that is absolutely horrifying, but also I feel like it's just weird. So this infected like comes up to her and she just accepts it, and he just like kisses her. So that it's like, is this what's happening? Is this like infected love? Just gives it a new a new meaning to tainted love, I guess. So anyway, yeah, he comes up and like just like gives her like the tendril kiss of life, and she just goes and accepts it, and I'm like, this is horrific. But then she's still trying to do the thing, and then she drops it, and then the whole place goes boom, episode ends. So yeah, quite a deviation at the end there. I don't know, I was watching it going, no, not because I was like, this is against, but it as much as I'm just like, well, I kind of like the way the original game, the game did it. It was at least tense and interesting to watch a different take. And this tendril kissing ain't it. I'm not. Is this what all the infected getting up to when our backs are turned? They're all just like snogging each other in the, behind the bike shed and stuff. I guess that's how it happens. So I think that's everything that I had that I wanted to touch on. This was, again, I said, my raw, unfiltered, me just thinking thoughts out of my brain as they tumble out of my mouth. So yeah, very much enjoyed the episode. Looking forward to seeing next time, which I imagine will be Billstown. I want to see what do I want to see next time? Let's put the spoiler hand down now. Spoiler hands are over. What do I want to see in the next episode? So I wonder if they'll have the conversation like, we keep our histories to ourselves and don't tell anyone about your condition. Like, okay. By the way, I thought Bella as Ellie, great lines of dialogue, some good stuff happening there. Yeah, so they're going to go Billstown. I wonder if they'll have that nice sort of like, this is when they're going to start bonding. So I want to see the bonding. Bill will be fun to see. I guess we'll get more infected. Yeah, and then I guess the school will be quite fun to see, and then maybe the escape in the car. So I'm guessing that whole section will be an episode, which I guess will be quite exciting to watch. So yeah, big thumbs up for me this episode. Very much enjoyed it. Looking forward to seeing how the series will go. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about the episode and what parts you are potentially excited for next time or in the coming episodes. That's all from me. I will catch you next week for the next review of episode 3. And don't forget, endure and survive.